Well, hello, Dana.
Hello, Deborah.
We are live.
We are.
So, welcome everybody to Get Real with Deb and Dana. Little warning on tonight. It's going to be a little sensitive, emotional. Um, if you have a hard time with the topic, feel free to back out. We understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's a topic that needs to be talked about. Number one, this young man demands it. Number two, this is real life. So
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce our beautiful guest. Karen Swisher-McKee is a Michigan native who has learned how to both thrive and survive following the loss of her son in 2014. While in a deep, dark hole, she discovered the strength of spirituality and of the energy from the other side, which was shown via messages, dreams, and more. She read one book at a time, such as Heaven is for Real and Echoes of the Soul, and she was able to find a flashlight within the dark and shine her way back to the surface. Each book taught her something new and helped her feel less isolated and misunderstood. These books were so helpful, Karen decided to write her own, 1 Year Without Jonathan. It's somewhat of a handbook to help others in grief. It's a raw story that allows others in deep grief to know that they are not alone. Additionally, she shares many of her spiritual experiences that were tools on her journey to the grief and out of darkness. From being a mother, photographer, podiatrist, author, and more, Karen wishes to cohere with society through sharing her story and normalizing human emotions. Her story and her son are 1 in a million and demands to be shared. 1 Year Without Jonathan can be found on Amazon. So everybody, welcome Karen Swisher-McKee. Hi,
Hello.
Karen.
Hey, how are you guys?
We're great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. I'm doing pretty good.
That's
I'm
good.
3 months post chemo, cancer free, and
Yay.
every day gets better. So
That's awesome.
That is wonderful. I think the last time I saw you, you were right around that last chemo mark. So
Yeah.
It's been about 3 months.
Yes.
So we've been trying to get a show lined up, and Jonathan, being the wonderful young man that he is, decided he was going to play with us a little bit, and he was going to pick the date, because every date that we picked, something happened. So finally, here we are. So Karen, can you tell us a little bit about Jonathan?
Well, ever since the day that Jonathan was born, he was truly the most persistent person that I've ever met in my entire life. He just always had to push until he got his way. Another thing about him, he was just extremely funny. He had a very quick sense of humor. He was always making me laugh every day. He could be really annoying. He liked to get a rise out of me, and he was always playing tricks on me. He was a jokester. He was pretty athletic. He played a lot of sports. I think his favorite would probably be wakeboarding and skiing, because he was a risk taker. He liked taking risks, and unfortunately, he took a risk with his own life, which leads us to where we are right now. But he was an adventure every day, and he's still leading me on an adventure from the afterlife.
Yes, he is. And he's been gone since 2014.
Yes.
That's quite a while.
Yes.
But he seems very present in your life, and I love that you keep him with you and with all of us in the way that you do. So I'm just going to show people a photo here. This is your book, and that's Jonathan. So you can see in his eyes, he's and I know this sounds weird, but full of life, even from the other side. And this is Karen's book that is available on Amazon. So feel free to look it up. I have read it, and I can say for myself, it's not super easy to read, but I have a son as well on the other side. So I had to set it down more than once, but it's a great tool because it does exactly what you said, Karen. It lets us know we're not alone.
Well, I was very honest. I did not sugarcoat it. I, expressed myself exactly how I felt.
Mhm.
And that's hard for people to hear. Most of the time when people ask you how you're doing, you say, I'm doing okay. But I really told it how it was. And it is a horrendous experience. And people really can feel it in the book. They really can feel it. And for those who have been there, it is a very, what's the word? When you read it and you're going through this yourself, it does make you feel a lot better in a way to know that your feelings are normal. Because I know for myself, the emotions that you have are so dark that you really think you must be abnormal, or there's something wrong with you, or you're going to die, or something like that. And so other people, when they read my book, although it was very hard, most people do have to set it down multiple times, but they also feel a connection. And like I said, feel less isolated. I think that when you lose a child, it is very isolating because not that many people go through it. I mean, it's not terribly uncommon, but I was the only person I knew who was going through it in my real life. I mean, I met a lot of people online and through my experience, but I didn't personally know anybody who was going through the death of a suicide at that time. So,
Right. Yeah. One thing I can say about the book too, Karen, is that in reading it, we do feel very isolated and alone. And, you just have this knowing that others can't, as a mom, we can't put ourselves in that position. We can't allow ourselves to imagine what that would be like. But I thought, gosh, I would love for the people who love me to read this book so they can see that some of this stuff is normal, and kind of know where we're at. So I was happy the book did that as well.
yes, I agree. Grief is inside you, so you can't always see what's on the outside of you. People just assume that because you're working or you're kind of trying to go about your life that you're okay, you're handling it. But if you could see what grief looked like, it would be gaping big wounds all over your body with pus pouring out of it, and just severely wounded person. But people can't see that, so they just think that you're okay, and they don't understand what you're going through.
Yeah. And I want to say again to our listeners, if you feel like this is a little too heavy, we understand. But that's kind of goes along with Get Real with Deb and Dana. We're not going to have topics that are sweet and fluffy.
Right. But I will say that it does get better. I did have healing. I did have these experiences. So in the end, it's not a happy ending, but it's a happier ending. But you have to get through it. Just like in our lives, we have to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Karen, can you give us a little bit about, and I hate to even go there, but I know our audience wants to know what happened.
So my son was in 7th grade. I was having an amazing day this day. It was November 13th, 2014, and I was having the time of my life. My husband had just gotten a promotion. I was planning on expanding my business. I'm a podiatrist, and I had also gotten trained in reflexology, and I was interested in making like a holistic practice. I was looking for office space. We were going to be moving literally a week later into our dream house, and I felt like I was on top of the world. And I even saw the sun shining through the clouds that day, like beams of light. And I thought that God was blessing me. I thought that God was telling me, your life is going to change. Like, this is it. This is the changing point. And I thought it was for the better, but unfortunately it was going to change. And he was telling me that I was going to need his support. But anyway, so I was going through the day really awesome. I saw my patients. I went to pick up my daughter at the gym and she wasn't ready. So I did a quick workout. I ran into a friend. I was talking to her about moving and the new house. I was in a great mood. I dropped my daughter off at home and I had to hurry and rush to my son's conferences. So I just dropped her off and I said, call me if there's any problems. Now, my son was already supposed to be there. He would normally get home from the bus at around 4:10, and I was dropping my daughter off at 4:30. It was actually the first day that a babysitter wasn't there. They had told me, my son and daughter, that they were too old for a babysitter, and we had had a talk about it, expectations, responsibilities, and they promised me everything was going to be okay. So I went off to conferences, and surprisingly, conferences went great. And I was ready to celebrate. There was a bake sale at school, and I bought these chocolate covered Rice Krispies, and I was ready to come home and be like, oh my gosh, everything's going good. Let's have a Rice Krispie treat and da 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 da. And when I came home, I honked at the garage because my son would have to open the garage door for us because it was broken from outside. And I honked and nobody came. And I just thought, well, that was kind of weird because usually my son was really good about this. And so then I went to the front door and I was knocking on the door and nobody was answering it. And then I had to dig a key out of my purse in the dark. And then I finally got in and I saw my daughter sitting on the couch, but not my son. His backpack was there and everything. So I'm like, well, where is Jonathan? And she said, oh, I don't know. I thought he had Taekwondo today. And I said, no, he didn't have Taekwondo. And I was walking around. I thought they were playing a joke on me and that he was going to jump out at me, but he didn't. And then I called my husband and I asked him, do you know what's going on? Do you know where he is? He said, no, he didn't know. And then I opened the back door and I saw his body in the backyard. He was face down and I still thought he was playing a joke on me. So as I started walking towards him, then I saw all the blood and I knew it wasn't. And then I just started screaming. And then my daughter came out and then she started screaming. And I was just saying, call 911, call 911. I rolled him over and I could see immediately that he was dead. But I still thought that maybe we could revive him. My neighbors came over and they called 911 also. And then the police got there and the ambulance got there and, they put him on a stretcher and they were trying to, they had the paddles on him and they were trying to get his heart going. And I was wanting to be there with him, but they wouldn't let me be there with him because the police had questions for me. It was possible at that point that I killed him. So they were questioning me and I was just, totally freaking out. Like I wanted to be with my son. I wanted to be my son. And finally, I must have given them enough information that they knew it was probably a suicide. So they wouldn't let me go in the ambulance with him, but they let me go so that somebody drove me to the hospital. As he was getting into the ambulance, one of his shoe fell off. And I was very fixated on that. I just remember thinking, you've got to have your shoe. You've got to have your shoe. And I would find his shoe in the backyard a couple days later, and I still have his shoe. it's in my closet, and I just kind of look at it now and then, and I think there's a shoe. We never got a shoe back. So anyways, we made it to the hospital. I was praying the whole time. We thought that he was going to be okay. I thought that he was going to be hooked up to life support and that he was going to be saved, because this was just so incredibly surreal to me. I mean, I was completely blindsided by this. I had no indications that he even was like depressed or anything like that. So when I got there and I said I was, there to see my son Jonathan, they looked and they're like, well, we don't see him. And then my neighbor said, well, just go sit down. I'll take care of this. And then she came back and she told me that my son had died. He was pronounced dead on arrival. So that's when I fell. I felt like I was hit with lightning, and I fell into a deep hole. I just remember a sensation of falling and falling and falling and trying to grab onto something to stop myself from falling. And I also had kind of like this sensation like he's somewhere in this darkness. I can find him. I can fix this. But then I landed at the bottom, and it was like I broke every bone in my body, and just severe pain, just severe, intense, out of this world, dissociative pain.
Every mother's nightmare.
Yeah.
And again, something that none of us can allow ourselves to even imagine. Dana and I have talked a little bit before the show, and both being mediums, this is something that sadly we deal with, too often.
Yeah.
And, it's so important to get the information out, because there are so many parents that go through this, and it's a hell that no parent should ever have to go through.
Right.
I bless you for doing this.
Like I always say that, every time I meet somebody who's going through this and they are so thankful to meet me and have someone to talk to, I always say nobody ever wants to belong to this club ever, but I'm so thankful that other people do, so we can help each other.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sorry, how old was he?
He was 12, going on 13. He was going to be 13 in a few months. I just had his birthday. It was February 17th, and he would have been 23.
Wow.
So young. So young. So when did you get to the point where you started reading books on this?
Well, interestingly, I started reading these books immediately. My sister was talking to friends, as she was like driving over to my house, and she's like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And a friend told her, oh, you should really give her the book, Heaven is for Real, because it was really helpful for me. So my sister was calling around, and she talked to a person at Myers, and the person at Myers, the cashier, said, oh yes, Heaven is Real is amazing, and I'm going to hold the book for you. My name is XYZ, and when you get here, come find me, because I have a story for you, and I'll save the book for you. So when my sister got to Myers, she asked for the woman. The woman came with the book, and the woman said to her, after my mom died, or when she was about to pass away, we were talking, and both of us wanted to believe in heaven, but we weren't really sure. It was kind of far-fetched to us, but we hoped that there was, because, of course, if your mother's passing away, you want there to be a heaven. And later she had a dream where she was playing the song on the piano, and she remembered everything about it, all the verses and everything. And in her mind, she didn't know how she even knew this song. And then later she would find out that it was like a song related to her mom. I don't remember if like her mom used to play that on the piano or it was her mom's favorite song. I'm not really sure, but I know that that was proof to this woman that what her mom was telling her, look, there's a heaven because I'm giving you this song in your dream. So the woman told my sister that story, and then she gave her the book and said, heaven is for real. And so literally the day after my son died, I started reading the book, Heaven is for Real. And I was like in a huge state of shock. I was in very bad shape. I still had his blood on my face, on my hands, on my clothes. I hadn't changed my clothes.
Yeah.
I hadn't taken a shower, but I was still reading this book because I had to think that my son is in heaven. That was like the first step that I needed. If he wasn't here, he's got to be in heaven. And so that was, I started on these books day one.
Thank goodness you had those,
Yes.
you know, and your sister did that for you. That's amazing. Totally amazing.
It was, they were, and it was just so interesting because it just seemed like every book that I read touched on something that I wanted or needed to know or explained an experience that I had, because then we started having all these signs from Jonathan, and some of them were weird little quirky fun things, and other ones were massive like out of body experiences. And I had like a few little signs. I mean, I definitely was somewhat of a believer, but these things are not something I'd ever experienced before. And I found books to kind of help me explain what I was experiencing, because sometimes I thought I was going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, we see oftentimes that people miss these signs.
Yeah.
You know, their loved ones do come through, do try to get your attention, and, you know, so often people miss it. So how
Right.
did you gain the, you know, you talk about you became more spiritual and started getting the messages. Was that something that you worked at, or did it kind of naturally happen?
Well, I would say in my life, like I had been for a period of time, I was an atheist because I had gone through some hard times as a teenager, and I lost faith in God because I felt like God wasn't listening to me. Interestingly, someone who was spiritual at that time in my life told me that I needed the strength of these experiences. God was giving me the experiences and not making my life easier because I was going to need to be strong later on. And I didn't believe that, but it was true. But there was a day I was 25, and I was kind of I wasn't having like a really difficult time in my life, but I found myself in all these slightly precarious situations because I I was also kind of a risk taker, as a matter of fact. And there was a day where I just decided, you know what, I'm going to pray because I want to have a normal life. I am tired of all these crazy things happening to me. And so I literally got on my hands and knees, and I said, if there is a God, I need a miracle. I want this to happen in a half an hour. And if this happens, then I'll try to be open. But you know, if it doesn't happen, then I'm shutting that door. And literally within a half an hour, this did happen. And I never share what that thing was. And I'm still not going to, because then people start analyzing whether it's a miracle or not. But the point is, it was a miracle to me because it had never happened to me before. And it's what I asked for.
Right.
So I did say at that point, I said, okay, well, you know, I said I was going to try and believe. So I'm going to try and believe, but it's really hard to go from being an atheist to like just believing in God. So I was just kind of like dabbling with that idea. And then I ran into this man who was wearing a black suit, and he came up to me and he said, I just want you to know that God is always waiting for you. No matter what, It doesn't matter if you believe or you don't believe. He is always there with you no matter what. So take all the time that you want, but just know God is there with you. And that really just like floored me, because still to this day, I've never had anybody come up to me and say that to me. So that really like opened things up for me. And then I would say that instead of just, I started trying to like figure it out. I started trying to go to church or talk to people, and actually try to like figure out what faith meant and what God's messages were, and try to live my life. Not always the best at it, but try to live my life the way God wants me to, not just the way I want it to. And I would say, by the time that Jonathan died, I would say that I did believe in God. I just didn't know how much farther this journey was going to go. And, through these other experiences that I had through Jonathan, and not just Jonathan, my mom, when she passed away, my sister had experiences also. I started talking to a lot more people. I talked to mediums. I would say that my faith is just like rock solid at this point.
That's good to know, because sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
But, and I'm glad that you do talk to mediums, because that's how we met. So I thank you for that.
And you were very helpful. They were great readings, as a matter of fact. Amazing.
Thank you. So, we kind of started the show with Jonathan definitely is a very strong presence, strong person, even from the other side.
Yes.
I know, the little bit of contact you and I have had, he's made an impact on my life. And he's made it known that, he'll kind of run things from there. So I'm wondering, in your family, what is it like? I mean, do all of you, your daughter, your husband, does everybody kind of recognize that Jonathan is definitely there with you and helps with many things?
Well, 100%. Like, Ed and I talk about it regularly with my daughter and one of my sisters. We frequently are having experiences with him, and they recognize them, and they recognize how he's trying to help them. My husband is a little bit more obstinate, whereas he does believe, and he definitely appreciates how Jonathan has helped me. He has had some experiences himself, but he doesn't appreciate them as much as I do. Maybe I could say that. And then I know that his cousins have had some experiences too. They vary on their level of spirituality and their beliefs in God. But I think that everybody has been touched in a way. We had this experience at his viewing where all the cousins, which ranged at that point from age 10 to 15 or 16, I'm not sure, were there at the viewing. And it was obviously a horrendous experience. Like, no child wants to see their cousin dead in front of them in a casket. So my brother, as a joke, said, Jonathan, if you're here, if somebody stubs their toe, we know that you're with us. And we just kind of like laughed, because that was just so silly. Like, who's going to stub their toe? But we appreciated him trying to lighten the mood a little bit. But as it turns out, later that day, his son stubbed his toe so hard, his nail actually split in half. And so then everybody was like, oh my God, he's with us. He's with us. So again, like right from the start, he started doing these things to let us know that he was there.
Right. And he wasn't going to have him stub his toe a little bit, maybe.
I was just going to say, you got to be really strong about the stubbing of the toe.
Right, exactly. No doubt about it. No, it wasn't. We did not imagine it. That toe was stubbed. The nail was split in half.
Wow. Ow.
Yeah, I got a shooting pain up my leg
Yeah.
when she was talking about that. Jeez. So at what point did you start writing your own book?
So I started journaling like right away, and I had to write down all these experiences. And I also started getting into photography, so I would be making posts with my like captions of my writing in there. And I waited until my daughter was a little bit older because I didn't know how she was going to um, feel about what I was writing, and I didn't want to publish something that would maybe make her feel self-conscious. So it was about 2.5 years. No, was it 2.5 years? I think I started literally like 1 year. I started 1 year writing it, and I would write, and then sometimes I would take like a 6-month break. So it was 2.5 years that I actually published it after he passed away. But I think I started like actually officially writing it after the 1 year mark. However, I had been journaling and I had been expressing myself through photography and social media. And so I kind of like added that into the book also.
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to. We have some people in the
Oh,
listening audience. Thank
thank you
you,
guys.
and
Thank you for
sending some
listening.
love. Yes, yes. So, what a journey! What a journey! So now you are, coming up on that 11-year mark.
Yes, it's 10.5 years.
Yeah,
10.5 years. Yeah.
yeah. So, a little birdie told me that you might be working on another book.
I am. I'm working on 10 Years Without Jonathan.
Oh, cool.
And that is a lot harder actually than the first year because just so much has happened. And I'm also, the book is probably going to be more focused on my photography and how my photography helped me and like what I saw through the lens of a camera. Um, because that is one of the, that's like a physical way that healed me. I mean, there was the spiritual ways, and I will also describe more of spiritual situations that I went through in those years. But a concrete, just showing people like how this helped me, so that possibly it will help them too. And then, as you know, I did have the huge experience where maybe I should share the story about Sedona. And then I met that guy on TikTok, and then the whole experience on TikTok, how that healed me also. So that will be a huge portion of the book also. But maybe I should share that Sedona story because that was pretty intense.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this was about 6 months after my son passed away, and he or my sister said, let's go to Sedona. I think, there's supposed to be healing properties there and maybe something will happen to us. Nobody knew what to do. I'm in misery, they're in misery. And she's like, let's go take our daughters. She took her daughter, I took my daughter, and we went to Sedona. And while we were in Sedona, we went to this chapel. I can't remember the name of the chapel, but it's a chapel that's built right into the wall of a canyon. I mean, a rock, and you're surrounded by the canyons, and it's just absolutely beautiful. In the chapel, there's a window that's like floor to ceiling, and you can see like everything. It's like a panoramic view of the canyons.
Mm.
So you immediately have like a sense of peace just from the surroundings. But, I sat down and I was getting to the point where it's not like I wanted to kill myself, but I just didn't know how I was going to live because I was so exhausted from just existing that I couldn't imagine how I was going to be able to keep doing this. And I had this desire, a fantasy, I guess you could call it, that I would just wake up one day and go walk into the woods and lay down and never wake up again because I was just so tired. And I was sort of like fighting that feeling because I knew that my family needed me. And I guess there's a part of part of you inside you that just, demands that you're going to live, even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So I was in the chapel and I was begging God and like, just tell me what to do. I'll do it. Whatever you want me to do. I just cannot do this anymore. Whatever it is, I just need to know. Give me guidance. And like when I was there in the chapel, I sort of felt this like electrical feeling going through my body. And then I felt total peace, no pain for about maybe 30 seconds, just enough for me to notice the difference between pain and no pain. And how I interpreted that was that God was showing me that I can, at some point in my life, feel no pain. I just have to make it somehow, and that it was eventually going to be okay. Because there were times I just thought that that was going to be the rest of my life. And how could I live like that? So if I thought to myself, well, someday you're not going to have pain, then you can do this. So that was how I interpreted that experience in the chapel. But then that night, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was at a swim meet. And on one side of the pool were the stands where people were watching. And on the other side of the pool was like a platform. And there were stacks of yoga mats on the platform. And I was sitting on top of them by myself because I thought I had a better view there. And in the middle of the meet, while an event was going on, all the mats and me slid into the pool. And everybody was freaking out. Everybody was so mad at me because this was like a league meet and people were trying to get their cuts for state. And I ruined it, and I ruined their chances, and they were going to have to do a repeat of it and get all the mats out. And there I was sitting in the stands, soaking wet, mortified. Everyone was staring at me with disgust when all of a sudden you hear the door opening in the back. And I turn around and I see this young man coming in with a smile that's like pure sunshine and these dazzling blue-green eyes, just sort of like a rugged kind of looking guy, natural looking, like shoulder length, wavy brown hair. And he just comes bounding down the stairs and he's laughing at me like, oh my God, I cannot believe you just did that. And instantly I felt like comfortable. Like I had been like, and in real life, I often felt at these events that I had to go to, just so like, just people were staring at me. People were like not knowing what to say to me. I was uncomfortable. I was almost crying. So it was sort of like how I felt in real life. My daughter was a swimmer and in water polo, so I'd have to go to these events and be by myself and not want to talk to anyone and be comfortable. So in the dream, he comes bounding down. He sits down next to me and he asked me how I'm doing. And I said that I was doing okay. And then he said, well, you know, and I think you can be doing better, actually. And we ended up having like a talk. He was telling me things that I needed to do. And one of them was to actually listen to God, not just to go to church and be there and just passively be listening, to hear those words and do what God tells me to do. He also gave me some like concrete things like do random acts of kindness, be a good friend, do charity, things like that. But I got the gist that he was saying that, you know, I had to, like, it wasn't like life was going to change me, like a therapist was going to come in and make my life all better. I had to do the work myself. It was going to come from inside myself, and I was going to have to work on myself to be a better person, and that was what was going to heal me. So then at the end of the dream, he just said, you're going to be okay. And he looked at me with his beautiful blue-green eyes. And I said, okay, I'm going to be okay. And I held on to that dream. I thought about it every single day. I thought about it 3 times, 10 times. I thought about it all the time. And I really tried to do those things that were in the dream. We, you know, ended up, my daughter did a couple of charity things. She did this swim a mile in the Detroit River for wounded warriors. She did the color run. We raised money to put a wall, like a climbing wall up at a camp in Michigan. We did random acts of kindness. I tried to be a better friend. You know, when you're in that deep state of grief, you can't really, it's almost hard to do anything. But I did try to like, check in on my friends and keep some friendships. I did those things. So then it's 7 years later and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I'm good. I think I'm okay. Like, I'm not great, but I think I can live like this. I'm functioning, I'm working, I'm doing things, I'm out in this world. I think I'm okay. And then I was on TikTok. I usually was never on TikTok, and I certainly wasn't on TikTok looking at guys. I was probably looking at puppy videos and little kids, doing silly things or whatever. And all of a sudden, there's this guy in my feed that looks exactly like the guy in my dream. Now, you just have to remember that I thought about this dream every day, and I would actually, in my head, see his face saying to me, "You're going to be okay." And I would be like, "Okay, I'm going to be okay." So it's not like I didn't remember who this person was, or if it just was out of the blue. I mean, this was a person I thought about all the time prior to TikTok. I mean, I just thought it was my imagination. But after seeing him on TikTok, I was like, oh my God, this really looks like the guy. And then I went through his account, and then I'd be like, oh my gosh, that was his mannerism. That's, the way he looked when he was walking downstairs. There was one TikTok where he was walking downstairs, and there was a TikTok where his hair looked the same, and his eyes looked the same, and his smile was the same. And if you saw him, you would say that that was my definition of him, how he described him. You would say that is him, that he does have a smile that's like, sunshine. He does have beautiful green blue eyes. But so then at that point, I was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, if God can put real people in my dreams, there's absolutely no doubt there's a God. And if there is a God, there is a heaven. And if there is a heaven, for sure my son is there, for sure, for sure, for sure. Not like I hadn't already gotten a million other signs, but that was the one that just like shot me right out of the dark hole. And instead of just like existing and functioning and being okay, it was like I then landed in a sunny meadow, and I was like running around and free and happy. And that's when I really feel like I started like sort of living my life. And then I started following this guy. His name is William White on TikTok. And as it turns out, he has been having his journey, and we learn from him. He learns from us. It's kind of become this sort of like interesting person to follow on social media. So there was more growth, even like, later on, more things that I learned about my own life, and more growth in spirituality also. But that was like one crazy thing that like happened not only right after Jonathan died, 6 months, it started in Sedona, but then 7 years later on TikTok. So the signs are all around us. And that's one that I'll definitely be writing about in the book, because that was something that happened, after the first year. The dream is in the first book. I wrote about that in the first book, but not the
actual
guy. So
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely crazy. Like, I just don't know how these things happen to me. That's one thing that I still like wonder. I mean, like, obviously Jonathan is a powerful person, and he makes things happen on Earth from the afterlife. But it's still crazy.
Right. Yeah, never underestimate the power of spirit.
That's for sure. That is for sure.
We are soul. That's who we truly are. So
your rational mind is the part that doesn't want to be convinced, even though you believe it in the other part. But once you have something tangible, like that man is a real person that you're now following, etc., and knowing who that person was in some fashion years beforehand, you can't rationalize that. That's an absolute thing. So that part sweeps away that.
Yes. So I experienced an out-of-body experience where I saw Jonathan like in this like luminescent light. And to me, he was trying to explain to me, this is how, because the question that I always had is like, how can you exist but your body isn't here? How are you the same person or soul, I should say, without a body. And that was what he was showing me, because when I didn't have a body in this out of body experience, I just existed, and I was like, oh, okay, this is how it is. But if I told that to somebody, they would think that I was just had a hallucination or something like that, even though I fully myself knew that it was not a hallucination. Like,
Right.
how do I get people to believe that? Well, this was one experience where this is something real that really, really happened. Like, I couldn't possibly imagine this person before I knew this person. And interestingly, from the dream, I was helped. And then in real life, I was helped also. So like the experience just kind of like continued. So yes, like when you have concrete things that, you know, you have to believe them, like you have to believe them. And it's not that I didn't believe that, but I can tell other people that, and that's concrete for them, because if you haven't experienced these things, it's hard to imagine.
Right. Yeah, it really is. But it's, you know, it's great proof, wonderful proof. And, you know, I hope other people that are listening will seek that proof out as well and be open to it.
They have to ask for it, maybe, too.
Yes.
Right.
You know, I think in that sort of situation, I haven't experienced that, thank God. But I would imagine that there's a lot of you that doesn't want to hear about God at that point, like you said earlier. So for you to actually ask, and then all these amazing things happen that you cannot disprove that. That's like, again, that's amazing to me, because that's something you can touch that's here. It's not you know, your out of body experience was real, but to try to tell it to somebody else, they're like, ooh, you know, how we all get that kind of the, oh, okay, you know.
Right.
But if, like, I saw this man years ago, and now here he is looking at me from TikTok.
Right.
And I was looking at puppy dogs at the time, and there he is.
I know, it's so crazy. And then the funny thing is, I have to add that
person,
initially I was just like, just him existing was like proof to me. And I wasn't even going to follow him. I was just like, that was amazing. This is a real person that actually exists. And then literally, like, I heard Jonathan's voice in my head saying, all right, Mom, you have to follow him. And I'm like, follow him? Like, why am I going to follow this young guy? At the time he was 21. And he was like, yeah, you got to follow him. And I resisted that for like a while, but he kept prodding me by putting him in my feed. And every time I would hear him saying, okay, now follow him. Okay, now follow him. And so then finally I was like, all right, Jonathan, I will follow him. And then I followed him. I didn't follow anybody at the time on TikTok. I probably followed like 10 people, because I would just randomly go through TikTok. I wasn't like following anybody. And then once I started following him, he was like, okay, now you have to watch his lives. And I'm like, I am not watching his lives. That's just ridiculous. Like, I have more important things to do. He's sitting there drinking his coffee. I'd be like, you have to watch his lives. You have to watch his lives. And
I love the directive you got. Like, no.
And so then I did. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I understand. And the funny thing is, I would sometimes feel like, all right, well, that's enough. I'm done with this. I learned my lessons. I see that he's real. We're good. Moving on. And he's like, no, Mom, you're not finished. You got to stay there. Something else is going to happen. And then I eventually ended up doing his podcast back in September.
Oh, how amazing is that?
So I'm like, oh, you made me wait 3.5 years of following him before that happened. Thank you, Jonathan. But it was worth it.
Yeah. So there's a comment here from one of my best friends, and I don't know if I can get this all on the screen or not. Oh,
hey, it worked.
It worked. And Beth has recently, a year ago, went through the loss of her daughter. So I just wanted you to see, Karen.
Well, I'm very, very sorry for your loss. I know how tragic it is, and I know exactly how you're feeling. I know it's going to be a long, hard journey for you, but just know you are going to make it. You will make it. And not only will you make it, but you'll make it even more than your wildest dreams can imagine. but you just have to do it. But we're here for you. And, my social media is up. If you ever want to contact me, message me. I'm here for you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen. Love you, Beth. Yes, and that's what it's all about. And it's what Jonathan demanded, not just asked for. He demanded that you get this out. You keep on moving, And this is what happens when you do shows like this. And you've done other shows. And, he's very pushy about it. Where,
He's very
going
pushy.
to do it, when you're going to do it, all of that. So I know that, Beth is exactly right. Everybody that's in the chat right now listening needs to hear what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'm very happy to be here sharing. I wish we all had a different story. I wish all our stories were different, but they're not. And so because it is what it is, I'm happy to be here sharing with you guys and just want to help people. That's all.
Okay, so Lee is asking for the name of the book again. So I'm going to take a moment and put that up.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Feel free to talk. I'm a little slow at this. Normally, the other shows, I have a producer, so I don't have to do this stuff myself. But there we go. 1 year without Jonathan. And it is on Amazon.
Fish.
Yes. It's on Amazon. Is there any other places that they can get this, Karen?
No, that's the only place. I mean, I do have many copies that I send out to people, but as far as buying it, that's the only place where it is now. It used to be in several bookstores. I think you can order it from Barnes & Noble. You can request it. But really the easiest way to get it is on Amazon.
Okay, thank you. And I will post it on my Facebook page. I'm sure Dana will as well, and we'll have it on Get Real with Deb and Dana.
Great.
And maybe we'll even get a few to put in the store.
He's my twin. Faithfully, we are
absolutely,
very similar.
I love the face he's got while he's holding on to that giant fish too.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, he had the time of his life. That was in August, and he died in November. You look at that face, and you can't even possibly ever imagine that would happen. You can't even ever imagine that would happen.
Right.
No.
Right. So in your book, Karen, I know that a lot of it was for other people, but it was also healing for you to be able to write that.
Yes.
So, I had met you and talked with you before reading the book, but I'm wondering how many people read this book and then had to talk to you, contacted you?
Quite a few. I've had messages from all over the world, actually. I'm not going to say literally all over the world, but I had someone from Japan contact me, and I had somebody from the UK contact me also. I don't exactly know how they got the book. I'm assuming somebody here sent it to them. But it used to, in the beginning, when I first put the book out, people would be contacting me all the time, and I was really active in grief groups. And so I shared it at that point also. Still, though, I just recently got a message yesterday from somebody who had read the book. So it still is happening to me. I feel like a lot of energy around him and this book and the message and the spirituality right now, in the fact that now this is the third podcast that I've done. And strangely, I had done that one podcast, but then he took it off his podcast, and then he put it back on his birthday, not even really knowing that it was his birthday. So there is a lot of energy around it for some reason right now.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's the magical year.
Yeah.
And I think that what most people say to me in their messages is that, first of all, I made it 1 year. So they feel like they can make it also. They're also so happy to be reading someone who has the same thoughts as them. Because like I said, they are dark thoughts. It is hard to read, but it's what you're thinking, and it's nice to not feel alone. And then I do have some concrete things in there also, things that helped me. And, when you're that lost, you'll try to do anything, basically. If someone tells you that something helped them, you're going to try it.
Right.
So hopefully it does help people too.
Right. So I know we're getting short on time, but what helped you the most, do you think?
The thing that had the most impact on me, well, first of all the spiritual things, they were very comforting and very much helped me know that he is okay someplace. Now, that didn't help me with missing him. I still had that like really bad aching missing him. I would know that he is like waiting in the next room or with me, actually. I mean, sometimes I can actually feel him around me, but I missed him. I missed all the good times. I missed the laughing. I didn't like having to deal with all this trauma with my daughter and, with my husband and dealing with their grief also. But what helped me most, what was most impactful for me was listening to God's words. I really, took out my devotional like every day, and I really focused on what was said on that devotional and tried to actually put that into my life. Again, not just reading it and thinking like, oh, that was fun. Yeah, that's a good idea. But I really tried to like make that part of my life. And at times now I will forget. Sometimes I actually even forget. It's not like I forget there's a God, but I just start feeling like I'm in control and what do I need to do, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I have to like step back and be like, no, like God is in control. You're on the right path because God is always going to put you on the right path. Calm down, get out your devotional, read what's going on today, think about that. And that really has changed my life because I just don't worry about it anymore. I'm able to just live my life because I've given my problems to God.
Sorry, I was just reading a few of the comments. I wanted to ask, did you get therapy at all? Did the family get therapy? Is this something that you recommend?
So I did a lot of therapy. I did art therapy. I did music therapy. I did Reiki. I did massage therapy. I did traditional therapy. I would say that probably I just never really found the right therapist that I connected with. However, I think that I know people who have had therapy and it was really helpful for them. All the other kinds of therapy like massage, music, art, those would temporarily help me. So in the moment while I was doing those things, they were helpful for me, but they didn't radically, profoundly change me. They wouldn't be something that I would say like, yeah, that was it. It was art therapy. I would say like temporarily it did help. For me in my life, and I discovered this on my own, photography was the best thing for me because for some reason when I was looking through the lens, I was seeing something different. I was looking for beauty and I found it and I took a picture and I proved to myself that this is still a beautiful world. I had to get myself out there in nature. I had to get myself out of bed to do this. So photography ended up being the best thing for me as far as like non-spiritual or God. And it also distracted me. Like when you're thinking about how to get the right angle, I wasn't thinking, I miss you, because that's the only thought I had in my head for at least a year. And that was, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you. Why did you do this? Why? I miss you. Where are you? What are you doing? I miss you. When I was taking a picture, I was at least able to be like, oh, okay, that looks pretty. I like that. That would really be the only time that I would get that thought out of my head. And even if it was a minute, I got it out of my head, it was still a relief.
Right.
So it's a very personal journey, and the healing itself is very personal.
Yes.
So really what you are kind of telling people is to just keep one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely.
Believe that you are going to And I don't even know, Karen, if I want to use the word heal. We recover to a point, but everybody has to find their own way of healing.
Yes, in some ways, I think that like almost everybody can heal in a way, by listening to other people's stories and knowing that other people have healed. I think that that's helpful for almost everybody. But like for me, I think you sort of just have to throw it all up against the wall and find what works for you.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's, I see other moms here and it warms my heart. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this.
Yes.
As I said, Dana and I being mediums, we do, I feel like we are part of that healing as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely. I mean, you have been very helpful for me. There's been a couple of times where, I'm just confused about signs that I'm getting, and it's nice for me to talk to you so you can kind of like help straighten those things out for me. But I did have an experience within the first year of talking to a medium, and that was really amazing. I would definitely recommend that for people.
I do too, because it is healing. Thank you, Karen, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. I hope this was helpful for you guys too.
Because I was so listening to you. If you ever watched this show before, I'm a yapper, and I'm just like this. It's a fascinating story.
I've never seen you so quiet, Dana.
Well, no,
well, you know what? Maybe we'll do another podcast later, and you can do the talking.
Then I can yap. Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody, look for Karen's book on Amazon.
Yes,
mostly, you can look other places.
I'm going to get it.
Yeah, it's a good book. It really is.
Well, thank you so much.
1 Year Without Jonathan. Yes, and thank you.
And
maybe we'll do it again.
Sounds great. Sounds wonderful. Yes. Have a wonderful
Very
Sunday
nice
evening.
Too.
Take care.
Very inspirational.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Love you all. Everybody have a great night, and we will see you again very soon. On the 2nd
of March.
Yes, we will be back with
Katrina Cooper from Texas, who is a psychic medium I'll be doing a gallery with in Texas at the end of March.
Very interesting.
So
yes. All right. Take care, everybody. We love you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.